Roy Clark was famous for a lot of things besides country music. He made everyone happy on Hee Haw and was a banjo master who lit up every stage he played on. But after he died in 2018, something strange showed up in his Tulsa house. Roy had a closet door locked for many years, and his family found it when they were going through his things. He kept it hidden in the back of his private music room. There was no name or key on it, and there was no reason given. But there was silence in the room when they finally opened it. No one else knew what was inside. What I saw shocked me. Secret music, letters to people you don't know, and a voice recording that says, "For when I'm gone," are all in there. There was something about Roy's life that no one should have seen. They found something in the closet that would make his family speechless. In the U.S., Roy Clark was a well-known name. His smile could make a room brighter, and the way he played the strings was like magic. Roy was always happy, whether he was on Hee Haw making jokes or the Grand Ole Opry stage singing songs that would break your heart. But the people who knew him best could feel something else, a weight that he carried with him every time he came on stage. Roy came into the world in 1933 in Mehuron, Virginia. His dad grew tobacco and played music for fun. His life was hard, but Roy's love of music helped him deal with it. He learned to play the guitar very well by the time he was 14. By the time he was 17, he had won national banjo titles. But even when he was young, there were times when he lost interest and would spend time alone. It was in an interview that he said, "Some smiles are defense and others make you look happy." The man on Hee Haw who made people laugh was great. Sure, but it's also risky. People had higher dreams for him as his fame grew. His plan was very tight. Tours, shows, and TV shows. Even when he was sick or sad, the show had to go on. He usually said yes, he didn't know how. Roy gave the stage his all, but not much to himself, according to his friends. Things at home were also getting worse. He was friendly and warm, but shy. His house had rooms. Not even his kids showed up. Roy had locked rooms. If you asked him about them, he'd laugh and say something funny about banjos that were hidden. But the joke was always a wall, something to take the eye off of one outfit. It was always there, and when I stood out, it was quiet. Not touched, Barb, Roy's wife of more than 60 years, was told not to open it. She thought it only had old papers or contracts that were easy to tear. Still, Roy often hid the truth in his songs. His hands could say things he would never say with his mouth. I think that's why his family was so shocked when they heard his secret songs. Roy was there without his helm. It wasn't just a room that Roy's family went into when they finally opened that closet door after he died. It was a secret part of Roy's life, one that was written quietly and with shame to protect it, and built up through years of public praise. What was in that closet would show them the real Roy Clark, who no one had ever seen. It was a safe, not just a place to store things. A lot of people who went into Roy Clark's music room never saw the small door in the far corner. It was hidden by amps and old awards. No one could recall seeing it open ever. His kids, even Barbara, told him he should never go there. His wife of 61 years had never been inside. When she asked me about it, I'd just smile and say, "That's where the ghosts live." After that, he'd play his banjo to hide something or change the mood. Roy passed away in 2018, and now his family has decided to open it. They went through every pocket, box, and file case on the jacket, until they found an old brass key tucked away in a guitar case lined with red velvet. They found something. Inside, that wasn't a mess and fit. It was planned, put together, and kept. Roy wrote his name on a sealed black case, a stack of cardboard boxes, reels of magnetic tape, and dozens of paper bags, many of which were tied with string. They saw something strange behind the shelves. It looked like no one had been in there in years from the inside. On the back of the wardrobe, there was a thin line or design. When they pushed on it, it gave way with a soft groan. There was a secret room inside. Inside is a small box that is locked. It didn't come with a key. They opened it up. Inside were pictures that no one had ever seen before. In front of a military plane, Roy was shaking hands with a man in dress. Roy was dressed in clothes from many years ago and looked grim. Not a single Hollywood movie was shown here. It was a private matter with the government. The letter was sealed and said, "For my family, only when I'm gone." The writing seemed old, shaky, and different. Inside the envelope was a cassette tape that said, "Play alone." The room was quiet. They didn't know if they should be scared or cry. But now Roy Clark seemed like a puzzle that was missing half of its pieces. They knew that he was funny, kind, and happy before. The closet had things in it besides keepsakes. It had a bad history and a Roy that was kept secret. The kind of man who didn't talk about his issues. The kind of man who laughed to cover up his hurt feelings. His family could now see those scars for the first time. They went down a lot. The outfit had been ready for many years. Once it was open, you couldn't go back. They didn't go inside until there was no one there. Roy's family held the tape like it was made of glass in his quiet music room. A tape player was found. Roy's old reel-to-reel deck was still plugged in and sitting on a dirty shelf. Just after I put the tape in and hit play, there was a short pause. Then there was silence, and then Roy Clark's voice came on. It was old, tired, and clear. "I'm already gone if you're hearing this," he stated. "I need to say something I could never say when I was alive." The room got cool. It wasn't real. It was also an admission. Roy spoke slowly and deeply. He talked about the things that fame cost him, the friendships that ended in quiet, and a part of his life that he had shut off in his mind and body. "That's a name you won't know," he told her. "I couldn't let anyone know what she did to help me." After the lights went out and everyone left, Ellie's voice was the only one I could trust. He didn't say who she was. He just said she knew everything. Roy then told the story of a terrible event that changed him forever. He stated, "I chose, and someone else paid for it." His voice broke. He took a break. The music, not the jokes or the praise, kept me alive. There was a 25-minute tape that played. He wasn't sad. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He did say, though, that the closet was where he remembered the things that not even he could see. His only wish was for them to be happy, which I gave them. But on the inside, I was someone else. The tape ended with a soft whisper. "Now you might know why I shut that door. It wasn't because I felt bad. It was about getting through." The tape ended. No one moved. Roy seemed to be in the room for a short time, sitting next to them and pulling back the curtain that he had always kept closed. The tape wasn't meant for fans to hear. It wasn't out of honor. It was to be honest, raw, weak, and hard to say no to, and it made them question what they thought they knew about her. Roy Clark buried more than just memories. He buried a different version of himself as well. His voice could be heard through the silence. This second self had finally come to life. This small wooden box was worn from age, but not locked. It was hidden under the tapes and files. Each letter was carefully wrapped in plastic, and there were a lot of them inside. Some were written on nice paper and some on rough notebook paper. The name Ellie kept coming up. It doesn't have a return address or last name. Eleanor alone. Some people wrote to Roy. Some were clearly written by him and were from as early as the 1960s. They were just friends. It wasn't work. There was something different about them. They were close but guarded, like two people speaking a secret language. In a note, she told you that it was okay not to tell them. The stage would never forgive you, because no one would get it. Again, read it. Don't carry this by yourself. You were not at fault. We did what we thought was right. The handwriting changed over time, but not the tone of voice. Haunted, deep in thought, and heavy. Roy clearly felt bad about what he did and wanted something. "It's what made my life worth living, but I can still hear it." He wrote in one letter, "I can still hear the tires. I still see his face." Barb felt cold when she read that. She didn't know something bad had happened. What did he do? Just what did Roy mean when he say, "I can still hear the tires"? They went back to the closet and found more. Behind the inside of a guitar case, there was a smaller package that was sealed with wax. On the back of a black and white picture of a teenage boy holding a mandolin, Roy's writing was easy to read. "I wish I had driven." That's another letter from Ellie on top of it. "He looked at you. You were freed. Why don't you want to let go of your mistakes?" The picture. With all the letters and hints, Roy was able to hide a terrible secret. Someone lost a young life, and they never dealt with their grief. Ellie had been Roy's rock in the dark, no matter who she was, someone he had never met or talked to. But through writing, he told them everything. These letters were not from friends. They were ways to stay alive. They also showed a Roy Clark who was hurting in silence behind the scenes of his fame. The family was sure they weren't just hearing lies. They took on sadness, the kind of sadness that made the man, the music, and the shows what they were. Now, every laugh, song, and show meant more. This was the last letter in the stack. It was written, not long before Roy died. There was only one cue left. "I hope they find it someday. After that, they might finally know who you were." In the far corner of the room, there was a black case that was locked. The copper locks were stiff from being used, and the leather was scratched. Tons of brand new reel-to-reel tapes were inside. Some had strange names like The Other Side, Wrong Stage, and Midnight. On these tracks, there was just Roy, a guitar, and the kind of calm you can only hear when a man is by himself. They weren't studio masters or records from concerts. A chair squeaking and a long sigh were the first sounds on the first tape. He then spoke in a voice no one had ever heard before. He felt like the words were too heavy for his voice to carry when he sang. I looked like a fool on TV. He whispered to me during the songs, but the tears were always mine. The words were not smart or well thought out. People said things that were set to music. One song was about a rainy, lonely drive through Tennessee with headlights cutting through the trees. The crash wasn't named, but it was clear from the song what it was about. Another song, Shadow in the Mirror, was about a man who couldn't look himself in the eye. Roy sang, and every laugh I made them laugh took a piece of me. They were not supposed to be let go. There were no bonus songs, duets, or banjo tricks, just words and the truth. The family was shocked and kept quiet as each song brought up hurt, regret, and desire from decades ago. Not only that, but some of the songs were made when Roy was very famous. Thanks to everyone, he was fine. He went on trips, won awards, and was on TV shows. These tapes, though, show that he was broken. He ended one song by saying, "No one will hear this, but I had to get it out," or "I'll die." The scariest tape was the last Nay, Roy didn't sing, he just spoke into the mic. These were locked up because I didn't want to hurt something that people liked. This man is what made it all happen. They came for the banjo and the smiles, but after that, there was no noise, just silence. There is nothing more noisy than sound. This wasn't an extra. They made me feel better. A mirror that shows Roy Clark's many sides. But the light never touched. Now that everyone was calm, his family played the music he didn't want anyone to hear, but may have needed to hear. Under the last row of boxes, a silk cloth sheet hid an army suitcase. It was cold to the touch and had dents in it. Roy Clark's family didn't know he had ever been in the Air Force. It wasn't talked about or written about in any book. There was a story in that case that Roy had never told anyone, not in public. The lyrics didn't say that. Their backs said United States Air Force. The person gave them his name, ID number, and a picture of Roy, who was only 20 years old, with a guitar slung over one shoulder and a sad face. There was Roy's neatly written mission log. The places are Korea and Japan, Guam,